You're overpaying for the wrong bottles. And worse, you're drinking whiskey that tastes like it was designed by committee to offend absolutely nobody. That fancy blue box your boss gifted you, there's a single malt that makes it taste like expensive training wheels. This isn't your typical avoid these trash bottles video. That would be simple. This is more frustrating. These whiskeys are fine, well made even, but there's something objectively better sitting right next to them on the shelf, and you're walking past it because someone convinced you that hype, scarcity, and brand recognition matter more than what's actually in your glass. We're going through 5 don't buy bottles and 5 replacements that deliver more flavor, more character, and more value. Often all 3. Sometimes it's hype versus substance. Sometimes it's scarcity versus sanity. Sometimes it's just proof that the best whiskey isn't always the one everyone's talking about. Let's get into it. Johnny Walker Blue Label is the ultimate, I don't know what he likes, but I want him to know I spent money whiskey. It's the corporate gift, the bottle that screams, I Googled expensive scotch and bought the first result. On paper, it sounds impressive. No age statement, but marketing whispers about really old whiskey in the blend, premium packaging, with heavy glass and etched bottles, blended scotch from rare casks that somehow justifies the price tag. In the glass, it's fine, smooth, gentle, rounded. It tastes expensive in that hotel bar way where everything is soft vanilla, light smoke, and a whisper of oak that never challenges you or makes you think. Here's the problem. Blue Label is bottled at 40%, which means the texture and intensity are muted from the start. It's like someone took a good whiskey and dragged the saturation slider to the left until nobody could possibly complain about it. You're not buying flavor, you're buying reputation and the reassurance that your gift won't accidentally offend someone who doesn't actually like whiskey. The blend itself is designed for universal appeal, which is another way of saying it's designed to be inoffensive. Master blenders spend their careers learning to balance flavors, and with Blue Label they've created something so balanced it barely exists. It's whiskey for people who want to appear sophisticated without having opinions about what they're drinking. If you want a bottle that actually earns the price tag and still screams luxury while delivering flavor worth talking about, buy Glenmorangie Signet instead. Signet is a no-age statement single malt bottled at 46% that's built around roasted chocolate malt barley, the kind used in brewing stouts, plus older Glenmorangie stocks, reportedly reaching up to 30 years. This isn't marketing speak. You can taste the difference immediately. Everything Blue Label hints at, Signet actually delivers. Where Blue is soft and polite, Signet is rich and decadent with espresso, dark chocolate, tiramisu, orange oil, and malted sweetness that builds and develops. The texture is creamy and oily from the higher ABV, creating mouthfeel that coats your palate instead of disappearing like Blue's watery politeness. The roasted chocolate malt gives Signet a flavor profile unlike anything else in Scotch whiskey. It's layered enough to keep whiskey nerds engaged for hours, finding new notes with every sip, but smooth enough for casual drinkers to enjoy without needing a degree in flavor analysis. Presentation? Signet looks like a Bond villain's decanter, glossy black gradient bottle, heavy enough to make a statement, unapologetically premium. On a shelf next to Blue Label's safe corporate blue box, Signet looks like it was designed for people who actually care about whiskey, instead of people who care about what their whiskey says about them. If you're buying a prestige bottle for someone who actually drinks whiskey instead of just posing with it for Instagram, skip the blue flex and go Signet. You still get the luxury, but this time, the liquid actually justifies the price instead of just the packaging. Springbank 10 is the whiskey nerd's personality trait, the bottle they mention within 5 minutes of meeting you to establish credibility. It's the Campbelltown darling with funky, coastal, oily, lightly peated character that's genuinely excellent when you can actually find it for normal money, which is basically never anymore. Springbank's tiny production combined with massive hype means it's constantly out of stock. Secondary prices are absurd, and people brag about finding it more than they actually drink it. Owning Springbank has become more important than drinking Springbank, which is exactly how cult whiskey dies. It becomes a flex, not a dram. Flavor-wise, Springbank 10 absolutely delivers when you can get it. Maritime salt, gentle peat smoke, waxy texture that coats your mouth, farmyard funk that smells like wet hay and old barns, mineral notes that taste like licking rocks on a beach, vanilla and malt sweetness underneath it all. The profile feels old school and stubbornly unmodern, like whiskey made by people who don't care what Instagram thinks whiskey should taste like. But here's the thing. If you're chasing that Campbelltown character and not the flex of saying, I got Springbank at retail, there's a better, saner move that doesn't require joining Discord servers to track shipments or paying triple retail on secondary markets. Buy Kilkerran 12 instead. Kilkerran comes from Glengyle Distillery, also in Campbelltown, also under the Mitchell family umbrella that owns Springbank. In other words, it has blood ties to Springbank's DNA, but without the same lottery ticket scarcity that makes finding a bottle feel like winning whiskey bingo. The whiskey itself is age stated at 12 years, typically bottled at 46% without chill filtration, and uses a mix of bourbon and sherry casks that creates complexity without overwhelming the distillery character. In the glass, you get the same rugged coastal DNA, wax, salt, light peat smoke, mineral edge that tastes like the sea. Kilkerran leans slightly grassier and more herbal than Springbank, a bit drier in the finish, with more emphasis on the grassy citrus notes. You still get plenty of malt sweetness, that whiff of machine oil funk that Campbelltown fans love, and texture that proves they're not messing with the spirit through chill filtration or watering it down to oblivion. Quality-wise, they're peers. Preference comes down to which specific flavor balance you like more, Springbank's waxier richness or Kilkerran's grassier dryness. But Kilkerran wins in the real world because it's actually obtainable in many markets, usually cheaper than the insane prices Springbank 10 fetches when you can even find it. And you're not feeding the FOMO beast just to say you own a bottle. If you like the idea of old whiskey town producing weird, funky maritime single malt, buy Kilkerran 12 and leave Springbank 10 to the Instagram shelf queens who collect bottles instead of drinking them. Macallan 18 is the LinkedIn of Scotch, the I've made it bottle that gets displayed on desks in corner offices. It's expensive, globally recognized, and heavily associated with success in that way where the bottle matters more than what's inside it. And to be fair, Macallan 18 is well made. It leans into sherry cask maturation with dried fruits, orange peel, and polished oak that tastes expensive. It looks great on a bar cart in your home office during Zoom calls. But you're paying a massive brand tax for something that drinks smooth, safe, and slightly muted, especially if you've tried other sherried single malts that don't cost luxury car payment money. The whiskey is 18 years old, sherry forward, and often bottled at 43% depending on your market. At this level, 43% feels conservative, almost timid. You're paying premium money for something engineered to appeal to the widest possible audience, which means it's designed not to challenge anyone or make them think too hard about what they're drinking. Macallan built an empire on convincing people that their whiskey equals success, and they've done it so well that most people buying Macallan 18 are buying the idea of Macallan more than they're buying the actual liquid. The whiskey is good. The price is inflated by decades of brilliant marketing that made this bottle synonymous with achievement. If you want real sherry bomb luxury without subsidizing Macallan's marketing budget and without compromising on intensity, buy Tamdhu 18 instead. Tamdhu quietly does what Macallan markets itself as doing. They're focused exclusively on sherry cask maturation using heavy proportions of first fill Oloroso sherry casks directly from Spain. This isn't marketing, this is their entire production philosophy. Every drop of Tamdhu spends its entire life in sherry casks, and you can taste the commitment. Tamdhu 18 is bottled at 46.8% without chill filtration in most markets, which immediately gives it more presence and texture than Macallan 18's polite 43%. In the glass, you get dense dried fruit, dates, figs, dark chocolate, roasted nuts, baking spices, orange oil, and espresso. The mouthfeel is rich and chewy with intensity and depth that makes Macallan 18 taste polite by comparison. The sherry cask influence is obvious and unapologetic. This tastes like Christmas cake soaked in Pedro Jimenez, like the best parts of holiday baking condensed into liquid form. Where Macallan 18 whispers about sherry, Tamdhu 18 announces it loudly and proudly. Price-wise, Tamdhu 18 is still expensive. This isn't budget whiskey, but in many markets it undercuts Macallan 18 while offering higher ABV, more obvious sherry cask impact, and a flavor profile that feels like old-school sherry-matured scotch instead of polished luxury furniture designed for display. If you took the labels off and poured Macallan 18 versus Tamdhu 18 blind for serious sherry heads, a significant number would pick the Tamdhu. That's the point here. You're chasing flavor and intensity, not prestige glassware and brand recognition. So if your finger is hovering over Add to Cart on Macallan 18 for your once-a-year splurge, pause and pick Tamdhu 18 instead. It does the same job. Special, sherried, impressive on your shelf, but the whiskey itself is the star instead of the logo and the marketing campaign that convinced you this bottle means success. Here's where it gets controversial and where whiskey nerds might throw their Glencairns at me. Ben Nevis 10 is an enthusiast darling, the rugged, funky, slightly dirty Highland single malt from a cult-followed distillery. It has a reputation for oily texture, serious malt character, and an almost industrial edge in some batches that makes it taste like whiskey made in a functioning machine shop. Some drinkers love that gritty, unpolished style. They talk about how Ben Nevis tastes honest and uncompromising, like whiskey from an era before focus groups and market research ruined everything. Others take a sip and go, "Is this broken? Why does it taste like old machinery and damp warehouses instead of, something pleasant?" The problem with Ben Nevis 10 is inconsistency. Batch variation is significant enough that you might get a bottle that's funky in an interesting way, or you might get one that's funky in a "did this get contaminated" way. It's increasingly hard to find, riding a wave of hype among nerd circles that's turned it into another you-had-to-be-there whiskey where the chase matters more than the drink. If you like the idea of dirty, industrial, slightly chaotic Highland whiskey, but don't want it to taste like a dare or a hazing ritual, buy Loch Lomond 12 instead. Loch Lomond is one of the most technically interesting distilleries in Scotland, using multiple still types, including straight-neck stills that let them produce everything from light and delicate to heavy and oily under one roof. They can essentially play whiskey-style roulette with their equipment, which gives them flexibility most distilleries don't have. Loch Lomond 12 is age-stated at 12 years, bottled at 46% and lightly peated with a mix of spirit types that creates complexity without chaos. In the glass, it delivers that industrial Highland vibe people love about Ben Nevis. Machine oil, toasted oak, cereal grains, orchard fruits, with a bit of peat smoke hovering in the background. The key difference? Loch Lomond 12 tastes intentional. Where Ben Nevis can feel wild and unpredictable, Loch Lomond feels like someone knew exactly what they were making and executed it deliberately. It's still rugged and characterful with enough funk to feel interesting, but it doesn't veer into "what is this" territory that makes casual drinkers question their life choices. Compared to Ben Nevis 10, Loch Lomond 12 tastes slightly older and more rounded while maintaining that industrial edge. It's usually easier to find, often cheaper, and you're not gambling on batch variation or paying inflated prices because whiskey nerds decided this is the new thing everyone needs to own. If you're into the whole dirty Highland aesthetic but want something that feels like craftsmanship rather than accident, Loch Lomond 12 is the smarter buy. It lets you explore that style without depending on a hype-driven, allocation-prone bottle that might taste amazing or might taste like punishment. This one might sting a bit because Arran makes genuinely excellent unpeated whiskey, and Macri Moore is their attempt to do lightly peated island single malt for people who want coastal smoke without full Islay intensity. On paper, Macri Moore sounds like a winner: fresh, youthful, peated whiskey from an island distillery with citrus, grass, light peat smoke, and approachable character from a brand with a strong reputation. In the glass, though, Macri Moore can feel thin, sharp, and a little flat in the mid-palate where you want richness and depth. You get the peat smoke, but not a ton of body behind it. It tastes like what it is: youngish whiskey trying to do Islay light, using Arran stills that were designed for unpeated malt. There's nothing wrong with it, but it feels like a side project from a distillery that's better at doing other things. Meanwhile, just across the island, Lag Distillery exists specifically to prove Arran knows their peated whiskey felt incomplete. Lag is literally Arran's peated sister distillery, purpose-built from the ground up to focus exclusively on smoky whiskey. This isn't a side project or a limited edition experiment. This is an entire facility dedicated to doing peated malt correctly. Lag Kilmary is one of its early core expressions, and it makes Macri Moore feel like the rough draft they needed to write before creating the real thing. Lag Kilmary uses 100% peated malt, distilled and matured at Lag on the southern end of Iran. It's typically bottled around 46% and focuses on bourbon cask maturation to showcase the spirit character without sherry casks dominating everything. In the glass, the difference is immediate. Oily, more muscular texture than Macri Moore's thin sharpness. Peat smoke that feels integrated into the whiskey instead of just sitting on top like a garnish. Notes of citrus, vanilla, maritime salt, and ash that create depth Macri Moore lacks. It's a more grown-up young peated whiskey, less sharp edges, more grip and substance, more complexity despite similar age. The irony here is perfect. Same ownership, same island, same water source. Arran and Lag are sister operations under Isle of Arran Distillers. Lag is just what happens when you build a distillery specifically for peat from day one, instead of trying to make your unpeated stills do something they weren't designed for. If you want a young peated island dram that actually feels substantial and worth revisiting, buy Lag Kilmary instead of Macri Moore. Same family, better execution, proof that purpose-built facilities matter more than brand recognition. Don't buy Johnnie Walker Blue Label. Go with Glenmorangie Signet. Same prestige lane, way more flavor, a higher ABV, and actual luxury in the glass instead of just the box. Don't buy Springbank 10. Go with Kilkerran 12. Same Campbelltown DNA, similar funk, coastal character, and actually obtainable without joining cult Discord servers. Don't buy Macallan 18. Go with Tamdu 18. Same sherry bomb roll, but higher ABV and more intense sherry character without paying the brand tax. Don't buy Ben Nevis 10. Go with Loch Lomond 12. Same rugged industrial Highland vibe with better consistency and without the batch lottery. Don't buy Arran Macri Moore. Go with Lag Kilmary. Same young peated island whiskey concept, but with more body, better smoke integration, and a distillery built for the job. This isn't about hating the don't buy bottles. None of these are undrinkable disasters or scams that should be poured down the drain. They're just bad plays for your money when better options exist in the exact same lane, same style, same use case, often similar or lower price with better execution. If you've got any of the don't buy bottles on your shelf already, you don't have to pour them down the drain or feel bad about enjoying them. Just know that next time you're buying, there's a smarter move that delivers more of what you're actually chasing: flavor, character, and whiskey that tastes like someone cared about the liquid instead of just the marketing campaign. Drop a comment with your "buy this, not that" whiskey pair, especially if you've got a bottle that looks incredible on Instagram but dies in a blind tasting against something cheaper and better. And if you want more videos that actually respect your wallet and your palate, hit subscribe, keep your standards high, and keep your whiskey honest.